much for having me this evening. And I'm sorry if there was a confusion on time. I thought it was supposed to be my morning tomorrow and your evening. So I apologize if I kept you waiting. First and foremost, thank you for organizing such an amazing forum for all of us to be able to come on and talk about homeopathy and share our love for the subject, as well as helping promote this on a world level. It's really impressive what you all are doing, and thank you so much for doing that. To begin, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background. I know I've spoken on your forum once before, so if some of the information is repeated, I apologize for that. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about my background, what drew me to homeopathy, and about my education. And then I'm going to look at some of the cases, just a few cases that, I've treated, which really stand out because they're pretty generic cases that we could see anywhere in the world. To start with, my interest and desire for homeopathy started when I had my children. That was almost 30 years ago. When my children were young, I really didn't want to, the first time one of my daughters had a ear infection, the doctor said, give amoxicillin and sent us home. 2 weeks later, same story. And by that point, I picked up a little pamphlet when I was sitting in the pediatrician's office where they had described that 97%, if I remember right, of ear infections are transmitted virally, and only a small percent are bacterial. And even those that are bacterial, we find out only after 3 days. So I asked the pediatrician, why are you prescribing antibiotics if the cases are mainly viral? So his response to me was, then don't come. Come after 3 days. So I was like, then why am I paying insurance? What's the point of having a medical system and insurance that covers us? So then he explained to me, he said, look, I'm not trying to come from a negative place. I'm actually used to be a doctor in Europe before, and there we were much more conservative in how we dispensed antibiotics. After coming to America, the rules are completely different. Parents have to go to work. Daycares do not accept children unless they have a prescription in place. So, and also doctors are scared of getting sued. So the first day when a parent comes in with a child having any sort of infection, they prescribe antibiotics freely because the parent is happy, the daycare is happy, and the doctor is protected. So the doctor's thing was, if you don't believe in this approach, don't come for 3 days. Try natural methods, whatever you want. And if after 3 days your child is still having these issues, then you come to me. We will treat at that point. So I said, okay, fair point. Then I asked him, what is the worst that can happen? And he told me a eardrum can rupture. So I thought, oh my God, that's terrible. I don't want my child's eardrum rupturing. And his response to that was, oh, that's no big deal. The eardrum is a self-reparative mechanism. It will regrow. So I said, oh, then what are we worrying about? He said, just keeping your child comfortable. So that was my quest. So I said, how am I going to keep my children comfortable for the first few days before I take them to the doctor? So around that time, my sister-in-law, my husband's sister, lives in Chennai, and her children were a little older than my children. And they were also believers in homeopathy. So her children were being treated by a local homeopath who lived in Chennai. So she introduced me to her homeopath and said, if you have any questions, you can call him, ask him questions. So that is initially how I started treating my children. If I noticed any ear infection, cold, cough, fever, whatever, I would call him, and then he would say, ask me, is your child hot? Is your child cold? Is your child thirsty or not? Are they desiring fresh air? Are they desiring a warm blanket? So I had to learn to become really observant because these were young children who could not talk and express their symptoms. So observation powers came into place. And then gradually, as my children grew, I also felt that I was very dependent on a doctor in India. Phone lines were not the way they are now. There were no mobile phones. It was only the good old STDs where we had to call, overseas. One rainfall, the line would be down. No computers either. So there was no email. So this is what very difficult. My child is sick in the morning. I have to wait till the doctor comes in the evening to the clinic to call him. And this was getting very difficult. So I told myself, I can't do this. I have to learn. I have to learn for myself to become independent. So when I came to India on one of my trips, I actually bought my first Boric as well as my Kent's repertory. And I would sit down with, when I noticed things with my children, and I would write down.
Published from both these books are first published from America and your state, California.
Oh, that's what I'm learning now. But that time,
so you came to India to buy it. Okay.
Yes, I came to India and actually bought it in Mumbai. And then I would write down, whenever I noticed something with my children, I would say they are restless or they are better by carrying or whatever it is. I would write down those symptoms that I noticed. And then I would search the repertory. I didn't know how to combine all the symptoms and come up with one remedy. I would look one by one, write the big bolded remedies, and then I would cross them out by hand. And then I would see which is the remedy that seems to match most of their acute symptoms. This is how I started prescribing. And sometimes I would get into real confusion between, should I give Hepar or should I give some Rastox? And then I would call the homeopath whenever possible. And I would say, these are the symptoms I'm seeing. Which remedy do you think is right? So then based on my observations, he would tell me to give this or give X or give Y. So this is kind of how I started. Then I felt as my children grew a little bit older, I had this idealistic vision of being a really good parent, how I would do all the right things for my children. So I decided I would go to school and study so that I could talk to them correctly, guide them correctly, and be a good parent. So I decided I would go to psychology school. This is around the time my husband had started a company. He was working 16, 18 hours a day. So studying was a good way to keep me busy. And also my children and I sat together and did homework together. So I enrolled in psychology school and did my master's in clinical counseling psychology. Once I graduated from that field, of course, I had to put in clinical hours, which required me to work in the field. I worked in a school district. I worked in a counseling facility, seeing families and, couples and individuals in counseling. The more I saw people in counseling, especially children, because that was my big interest because I had my own children. I felt so many of these patients who were on so many mental, prescription drugs could have been treated with homeopathy. And, but I, as a therapist, I was never allowed to prescribe. So I actually thought, okay, maybe I will go to, become a psychology doctorate. They had something called a clinical psychology doctorate, which looked like they could be able to prescribe some medication, which was at Stanford University. It was called a Psych D. So I enrolled there. It was 9 to 5, 5 days of the week. And then I thought to myself, where am I going to leave my kids? I'll have to leave them with a babysitter. Once I finish at 5, I have homework and all of those things to do. It's not going to be feasible. So with a heavy heart, I decided now is not my time. I'll wait. Then I came across a homeopathic school here in California, very close to my home in Santa Cruz. It was reasonably well reputed. They had like 5-star ratings. The school had good reviews. So I enrolled. The way the classes were structured is that you could take some of the classes online. And then after that, you could attend the clinics in person. So you got to see patients. So this sounded like a good method to me, that weekends I could go when my husband was there to the clinic, and weekdays I could attend classes online. I started doing this. But very many times I would run into questions. I wouldn't understand they would send me these videos to watch and these questions I had to answer. And then I would ask questions. I would write questions to the teacher and say, I don't understand this. How can you explain? And the reply I would get back was, that is a very good question you asked, but there was no answer. So after a while, I got frustrated and I said, I'm not learning anything. I'm just kind of reading the book and regurgitating the material it's almost like memorizing. I'm not understanding. So this is not the right school for me. I better wait till I can. And at that time, there were a couple of schools in San Francisco. I think there was Hahnemann College. There was British School of Homeopathy, which were pretty well reputed. But then that required a long drive and many hours away, which I didn't have the ability to do at that point. So I waited many more years and I said, my time will come. So finally, my kids grew older. And I decided finally it's my time to go to school and to study homeopathy. So I searched at that point the best school by reputation and reviews and accreditation was in San Diego. And I live in Northern California. For reference, you can say it's about a 45-minute flight for me. But I still chose to go there because I wanted to go to a good school. And so I would fly down often about every 15 to 20 days. I would attend a weekend class. And initially I went there thinking, this is a subject that is really dear to my heart. I'm so passionate about it. I've been so passionate about it for many years. And when my children were young and I started treating them, a lot of the neighborhood parents would come and say, treat my kids too. So it's sort of, I started treating other children without knowing and no formal credentials from pretty early on. So I really considered this to be a deep-rooted passion in me, and I thought I should love the classes and enjoy being there. Initially, it was fun learning the philosophies. That was very exciting for me. But then when we started studying the materia medica, there would be so many remedies that we learned, which made no sense to me. They was talking about, for example, cell phone remedy. You put your cell phone there. So now they are taking the cell phone and formulating a remedy. How? What? Where are the waves? It just didn't make any sense to me. I would, even though I went there all excited, by 2:33 on Sunday afternoon, I would keep looking at my watch, thinking, when am I going to get to go home? When is my flight home? And then I thought to myself, really, I'm not that passionate about this topic. I can't be that good at it. How can I come fly all the way to San Diego and then I lose interest by 3:00 in the afternoon? So this is kind of where I was at. I was thinking, should I drop out? Is something wrong with me? Is something wrong with the school? All these questions were going on in my head. And at that point, my teacher, my school made an announcement that there was a very famous doctor coming from India. He was going to teach a seminar, and it was going to be related to advanced treatment of cancer. At that point, I was really new in this field. I didn't know anything about treating cancer. And actually, homeopaths here are not technically even allowed to say they treat cancer. So I was thinking to myself, what is the point of attending this seminar? I'm not going to learn anything. This is not my subject. But anyway, it was during the hours of the school. So I thought, okay, well, might as well attend. Let's see what this doctor has to say. And this doctor was coming from India. So that I learned later. And it turned out to be Dr. Isaac. And I didn't know anything about him or about what he was going to teach. But I knew that when he came to that class and he started teaching, something happened to me, a spark lit in me. And I was kind of blown away by his teachings. I could see other students of his who had come to the class, and they looked so superior to my classmates. I was looking at these other students of Dr. Isaac who had come and thought, I wish I could be like them one day. How can I study with this doctor? How can I become this, knowledgeable like him? Can I ever reach a level of even decent knowledge? So all these thoughts were going on in my head. And then when the class ended, I was really sad. I really didn't want to go back home. This was the first time I felt this is why I wanted to study homeopathy. This is what I was looking for. And but I thought to myself, Dr. Isaac is going to go back. I'm going to go back to this normal class again and back to my level of frustration. So I picked up enough courage. I thought, this is a great doctor. If I go talk to him, I don't know what he's going to say. And I went to him kind of a bit scared and said, Dr. Isaac, I really enjoyed your class and I want to study with you. I really want to be like your students. Will you teach me? Do I have to finish my degree here to come to study with you, or will you be willing to teach me before? And to my big surprise, he told me, if you are passionate, I'm always willing to teach you. So I was like very surprised. And I said, when? And he said, you tell me. I said, this summer. It was April. at that time. So I said, this summer? He said, okay. I said, okay, when? And he said, well, I'm going to Russia to teach a class. I'll be gone. I'll be back by about July. Anyway, you send me a reminder email. So I said, okay. So I took his card. And the very same night, I sent him an email. And I actually had a little doubt in my heart. I thought, maybe he's saying yes to me in my face. Maybe he will go home and he will change his mind and tell me that now is not a good time. But to my surprise, he actually replied. And he gave me the dates of when I can come in July. I was so excited. I booked my flight tickets immediately and made my plans of when I was going to go. It was monsoon in Kerala at that time. I said, I don't care if it's raining, what it is, I'm going to Kerala. And it was my first time, by the way, coming to Kerala. I'd never been before. And there was no other student coming either. It was only me. So I was a bit nervous. How am I going to study with him by myself? I had no idea. There was no class. Am I going to sit in the clinic? Am I going to sit in the class? It was a lot of trepidation and nervousness. Then I went back to thinking to myself, what is the methodology that Dr. Jose uses to teach and to practice himself? It's not the method I was taught in my classroom. In my classroom, I was told, if a remedy comes to your mind, put it away. Don't even think about it because you're going to be biased. Find the entire case, repertorize the whole thing, look from a holistic standpoint, and then you look at the remedy. Don't even think about your remedy beforehand. This was not what I had done when I was treating my children. I used to look at the remedy and look at the rubric and repertorize and arrive at the answer. So I said, whereas the students in the classroom of Dr. Isaac were using what looked like a different method. He would ask them, 2-3 questions and they would answer very quickly and come up with the remedy. So from that day on, after the class, I started going on YouTube and watching every single leading homeopathic teacher I could find and watch how they teach, watch how they practice. This journey of mine made me realize the methodology he uses is called the Calcutta method. And then I started Googling and searching, how can I find a teacher teaching the Calcutta method in a college? That led me to finding a college in England, in London, run by Dr. Subrata Banerjee, Allen College. And I think Allen College used to initially be run like a 4-year degree program with sort of like a medical school, similar to a BHMS in India. But then I think the UK government came on and clamped down on it, saying it's an undergrad. You're not allowed to make it a 4-year program in UK. It has to be 3-year. So I applied to his college saying, can I come for a summer seminar? This is en route to Kerala. In the meanwhile, I also found a program in Greece, Professor Vitulkas, whose books I read in the meanwhile. And I was really blown away by his philosophy, the science of homeopathy, and the levels of health. After reading these books, I thought, oh my God, I want to study with Dr. Vitulkas, Professor Vitulkas. How do I study with him? And initially, I thought I'm going to go over to Greece, live in Alonissos for a few months and study with him, which is how another doctor I had met here, Dr. Bill Gray, told me that he had studied with him. But with all these searching I was doing, I came across this online program that Professor Vitulkas had put online from the International Classical Homeopathic School, which you could enroll and do some of the units in online, and some in real time and some in person. So this really appealed to me. So I enrolled there and started studying. Then I went to England. I did the summer seminar in June for 1 month with Dr. Banerjee. I really enjoyed his program as well. And then I asked him, will you take me in your college? Will you take me? And then he said, first year. I said, no, I already did 1 year in San Diego and I'm already studying with Vitulkas as well. Can I apply for your second year? He said, only if you attend the entire first year classes online, we will send you the recordings. You have to attend the entire first year of all the classes. This includes anatomy, physiology, pathology, posology, materia medica, philosophy, and take all the exams for the first year. If you pass all these exams successfully with a good score, then I will take you in second year. And second year was starting in end of August. This did not leave me with much time. So I said, okay, I will do it. I went to Kerala. During the day, I would get up in the morning, early morning. I would analyze all the cases I saw every day at Dr. Joseph's clinic. And he would kindly give me all the cases to take home with me. I would make notes on them, come up with all the questions I wanted to ask him. And then I would sit down and study for my Allen College and watch those lectures. Then I would go to his clinic. Along the way, I befriended his son, Isaac Jr. He's an absolute sweetheart and a really good homeopath. I also went and sat in Dr. Joseph's father's, Isaac Sr.'s clinic for some time. And I was like, my heart was blown by the level of homeopathy. I saw the patients who came to their clinics and the success that, he treated these conditions with. So I asked Isaac Jr., will you please teach me? Your dad is very senior. I cannot ask him dumb, stupid questions that come up in my head. But you, I can ask. You are more my age group. You're younger than me. You're my children's age. So he was really sweet. So I would come at 3 o'clock, between 2:30 and 3 every day, and study with Isaac Jr. till about 4. 4:15, Dr. Jose would come to clinic, till about 7:15, 7:30, 8 o'clock, till whenever his patients were done. This was my first trip to Kerala. And I was so much in love. I really did not want to go back to California. But I had no choice. I had to come back here. I had to go back to college by September and start my second year here, my second year in UK, as well as with Professor Vitulkas. I was doing all the 3 programs at the same time. All 3 were different methodologies. One required me to completely repertorize everything, take deep case notes, go into a lot of mind symptoms. Another one wanted me to do a completely different methodology, materia medica approach in Calcutta, from Allen College. And Vitulkas had his own approach, looking at the totality of symptoms. So I think, in a way, being exposed to all 3 made me aware of all the different methods that exist out there. And it was very impressive to see how many different ways you can tackle the same problem. And then eventually I realized Dr. Jose is also starting a program. I enrolled in his program and I came and attended all the 8 modules that he teaches and the clinics that he offers, and eventually graduated from that as well. And then I also joined my master's in homeopathy from Allen College in Calcutta with Junior Dr. Banerjee, Saptarishi Banerjee, and finished that master's and did my research project for that and submitted that. Through all the study and starting to see patients, one of the things that really struck me before I get into looking at the cases was that a big component of treating patients, especially in America, was that nutrition and diet played such a big part. As long as you hold on to your bad habits of eating, lack of exercise, you can never really completely change your health. You can take a homeopathic remedy, correct your symptoms for a little while, but if you continue with these bad habits, your symptoms are going to come back. So that journey led me to say, I now need to study nutrition, because if I tell my clients, as we refer to them here, that you have to now see somebody else for nutrition, somebody else for exercise, somebody else for psychology, they're not going to do it. So without telling them, I started providing the counseling piece whenever needed, because I had that training. And then I started slowly training myself in nutrition. I went to Cornell University and did my nutrition in plant-based nutrition. University of Florida to become a nutritionist. And I started combining all of this knowledge when I treated my clients. My method of treatment in terms of medicine was always and only homeopathy, classical homeopathy, and only Dr. Jose's method. After looking at all the other ways, I figured his way had the best results. People recovered quickly. My number of patients increased, and they were happy and I was happy. So why mess with it and go anywhere else? So that's kind of my approach and how I've treated my clients. What I'm going to do next is to go through a few cases as time permits. And then if there is time, if you all have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try and answer whatever I can. So the first patient that I have chosen to talk about, I'm going to refer to him as Casey. He is a 27-year-old male. I met Casey about year 2006. He was in my daughter's high school as her friend. I had no idea that in year 2010, my daughter went to college in London. And I didn't know then that she had a liking for Casey or that she had started dating him. That news I didn't know. But whenever I would visit London to our apartment, particularly one semester, I started noticing that I would find inhalers in the apartment. And I was really confused. Where are these inhalers coming from? And not one, mind you. Soon I found a drawer full of inhalers. And then I asked my daughter, who's this? Who's leaving inhalers here? Then the story came out, of course, that she was dating this boy and he was doing a semester abroad and that I know him and she's liked him from high school days. As I got to know him further, I realized that he was quite severely asthmatic. And as he became a more serious component in my daughter's life, one day she brought him to me and said, Mom, can you do something to help Casey? Do something about his asthma. Casey was open to this idea, but he really was not that convinced because he didn't believe that homeopathy, his mother had given homeopathy to him a few times and she had not given the right remedies clearly, and he really didn't get better for whatever she had given him. So he really didn't think that his condition could be treated, something he'd had from early childhood could be treated with homeopathy. But he was willing to give it a shot, mainly because of his girlfriend. Casey had also had pretty terrible seasonal allergies from when he was young, and they were really in pretty bad shape. He liked playing outdoor sports. He really loved sports, but he couldn't do much of it. Every time he played outdoors, the allergies would trigger. And then when the allergies got bad, he would have a bout of asthma with pretty heavy duty wheezing. So I took his case, and based on his symptom picture, the remedy that came to mind, what I saw was arsenic album. So I started him at a 30C potency. We did that for about a couple of months. After a couple of months, we went to 200C. We did that for another 2 months. And then the allergies were starting to get a bit better at that point. And then we went to his miasmatic remedy, which was Tuya. Tuya, we went all the way from a 30C potency all the way up to a 1M. And even though I'm giving this to you in a nutshell, in reality, there were a lot of disruptions to his treatment because he would have many acute complaints, especially in winter. He would often get severe cough, and sometimes this cough could go on for 2-3 months at a time. There was one particular occasion I remember quite vividly. The wheezing was really bad. It was night, and I didn't know what to do because I had not treated him. He was not my child. My child had never had this sort of issue. And I had never dealt with an asthmatic firsthand like this. So I actually took him to my steam shower, turned on the shower, made him sit in the shower with, all his clothes and a robe because he was shivering. And at that time, based on his symptoms, I had given him Drosera. A part of me was also really worried then. What if something goes wrong? What if I'm not able to do and, really bring this wheezing under control? So I called his family and I said, an inhaler, just in case I'm not able to fix it. So they brought an inhaler and gave it to me. But thank God, we never used that inhaler and we have never used it since that time. Casey was in treatment for about 2 years, regularly, for his asthma and allergies. Both went quite a bit under control. Initially, the way we saw the treatment go, the number of episodes reduced. Then the severity of the attack started to go down. Now the wheezing really is very rare. If it does happen, we know how to control it with homeopathy. The last time I think he had wheezing was about 2 years ago. Now, no allergies. He's able to completely play outdoors. He enjoys his golf, his football, his tennis, no reaction whatsoever. As the respiratory complaints improved, we moved on to starting to treat his skin issues. There were a lot of acne and pimples. That was the next focus for us. Due to his strong craving for pickles, Dr. Joes advised me to start him on antimonium crudum for that. So we gave him that for a few months. Within a short time, the skin completely, the pimples and acne was gone. The next thing that I saw surface was discoloration of the skin. Patches of skin on his face, sudden patches where it was almost like little spots, you could say, where the pigment would go away and then it would come back. And when I took the full case and I looked at it, the picture really well matched sulfur. So I gave him sulfur. We started with 30C and we went all the way to 1 hem. He didn't tell me at that point when I asked him, did you have this complaint before? He really wasn't quite sure. Later, when I met his mother and I mentioned this to her, she told me, oh yes, he had had this as a child. He used to go swimming in the pool and always would get this kind of skin condition. Then I eventually stopped his swimming. So clearly this was an old symptom returning. Next symptom we saw, which showed up suddenly and actually not very long ago, was a sudden allergy to eggs. Now, Casey loves eggs. He always ate eggs in different forms, omelette, scrambled, whatever way. And I really didn't know that he had any sort of allergy to eggs. But when I asked his mother again, she said, yes, as a child, he used to react to eggs. So again, this was an old symptom returning. I didn't want to treat it because if it's an old symptom, I wanted it to come and pass on its own. So I waited for some time to see if it would go away. For some reason, it was not going away. And his workload at that time, with COVID had happened, his workload was crazy. He was working day and night. Sleep had been really compromised. And so now his sleep patterns were messed up. And he said, even if he went to bed, he wasn't able to go to sleep. So I gave him Naxwamika. He was burning both ends of the candle. And interestingly, the Naxwamika 30C that I gave him once a week for 1 month normalized not only his sleep, but also this reaction to eggs. That egg sensitivity is completely gone. And as of right now, we don't have any complaint at the moment. Clearly, I can see from when we started his treatment that he had a very strong psychotic miasm. And now we have clearly brought him to the psoric level. So that was the first case. Is this space I'm talking at comfortable enough? Are you all able to understand, or am I going too slow or too fast? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
You are audible. You are audible. Please conclude to hand over to the next session.
Oh, okay. Is my time up?
Yes, you are 4 minutes over.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. Dr. Joseph told me I had an hour. I apologize for that.
You are late in coming, madam.
Oh, I think it was because